It's about Five Nights at Freddy's. And we've had a so-called MCU writer out, and he's been discussing the potential of a franchise. And he doesn't think, and I quote, Hollywood quite understands what they have at their disposal here with a Five Nights at Freddy's box off franchise film. And as you can see here, I don't even know who the hell the guy is. I just picked it up, man. I like to look at the headline. I thought, I can speak about this. I've not actually played this game, but I've seen people playing it enough that I actually know what it's about. It's a sort of, what I say, it's like a toy factory. There's a security guard or something starts in the factory. He's left overnight on his lonesome. He's in the control room. You've got a series of screens, CCTV screens, and he has to keep watch over this factory. And quickly things start moving. The toys are alive, and they start encroaching upon his space, and he has to shut doors off and try and survive the night. Ultimately, you end up getting fucking killed all the time because it's impossible to fend them off at the end. It's a really interesting horror video game. People love it. It's jump scares galore. As I say, I've not played it. I've not got the balls to play it myself because it just gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies. But yeah, I knew they were making this film. I don't know how far along into production it actually is. But it's got great potential, man. And look, we've seen some video game movies getting adapted over the last few years or so, and they've been better than what we'd grown accustomed to seeing in the 90s with Mortal Kombat and other movies. Obviously, Mortal Kombat get rebooted. It was a far better experience a couple of years ago. Off the top of my head, Uncharted, not a good example, was shit. The Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie and obviously the Swedish actress, who I'm blanking on. They were fine. They were watchable. They're certainly not the worst. Obviously, the Assassin's Creed one, again, not a good example. Rampage, not a good example. But we've had some interesting signs that maybe, just maybe, they can do it right. If they've got the right source material, they can make a successful adaptation of a video game movie. Sonic the Hedgehog's a perfect example. Pokemon Detective Pikachu, another perfect example. Really interesting video game adaptations that have been hugely successful. And it's because they are paying tribute to the character, but they're also doing a unique sort of story within the film. They're not chained like a fucking anchor at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean to the source material that came in video game form. Because in video game form, that's what I was about to say. Sounded wrong when it came off my tongue. It's a fine balance when you're adapting video games for film. You have to pay tribute to what came before, but you can't be suffocated by the stories that have came. You can't feel like there's no room for innovation, for an original concept. You have to create your own living, breathing story within the confines, within the sandbox of that video game universe. That's a long-winded, fucking waffled journey I've went on there to try and explain where I'm at with video game movies. And the reason I'm saying it is because this is a really simplistic concept. Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a security guard in a factory at night on his lonesome with these killer toys. That's a lovely sandbox. That's a foundation on which you can really build excuse me, a fucking budding horror franchise, man. There's so much prospect in there, and I fully do. I agree with your man here. I think it's Zach Stenson, C. Robert Karkoff. Heard of these geezers, actually. I agree with what he's saying. He said this, I think it's on Twitter. There is a lot of potential here. This isn't an Uncharted. This isn't... Obviously, The Last of Us is another example on HBO where it can really be done fucking well. And they probably are chained shot by shot to the actual video game story, but the video game story is of Oscar calibre in terms of the writing. Or Emmy calibre, because it's a movie, a TV show. Pardon me again. I need to take a drink because my throat is just dying here. A fucking throat infection. It just refuses to leave my body. It's just great. It's everywhere. Everyone's got it. It's not COVID. I don't know what it is, man. Maybe it's the next pandemic and we're already getting destroyed by it just now. Lord knows. But everything's fine and dandy. It's all good. There's great potential with this. There really is, man. In the horror genre in particular, I love the fact it's Blumhouse who are taking over it. It has got a relatively, pardon me, has got a relatively small budget, 25 million or something, $30 million. That gives them plenty of headroom to then make a profit on the movie. They don't have to be earning $400-500 million at the box office to make money back. And this is what Blumhouse have done so well over the last 10 years or so, making really compelling horror stories on relatively shoestring budgets. And then they're not backing themselves into a corner. They don't have to make fantastical sums of money like Disney, like Warner Bros., like these other studios. They have a huge profit and a success in their hands. They just seem to know the blueprint required to make a successful movie on a low budget, and then they can turn it into a franchise. We've seen it with The Invisible Man. We're going to have a franchise. We've seen it before with Blumhouse. They know what they're doing. So I'm happy it's Blumhouse that are taking over. They are the perfect studio for this. But Robert Cargill, this is what he had to say. Studios have no idea how many books and games there are. I didn't know there was books myself. Bloom can make these for years without needing to reboot, refresh, or come up with new material. He goes on to say, I think he goes on to say, maybe he doesn't. That's it. They've no idea. Yeah. They haven't, man. Look, there is huge potential here. Huge potential for a franchise with Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's horror, man. And it's slasher potentially. And it's just fucking siege horror. And that's my favourite kind of horror film. I've seen so many great ones over the years. The one that always comes to mind for me is Green Room with the late great Anton Yelchin. Some would argue he wasn't that great. He was only in his mid-20s, but he was a great actor and he had so much potential to go on and do something truly wonderful with his career. He was already in some brilliant movies. Patrick Stewart was in there as well. Brilliant siege horror movie. And slasher movie at that. They're my favourite kind of horror movies. You take that concept, you put in these killer sort of fucking teddy bear things in a dark atmospheric building. Right off the bat, man, you've got a set that can be done on the cheap. You can rent out a fucking warehouse and turn it into this place, and it's relatively cheap. You don't have to use big, bombastic visuals, CGI. It will be gritty, it will be visceral, it will be practical. There is so much potential for this film. I hope it's hugely successful, man. When's this film coming out, man? Is it coming out shortly? I'm really fucking looking forward to it. I actually really want to see how this is going to pop. I'm actually going to search this up just now. When is this? Is this due out within the foreseeable? It's literally 6 days away. Holy fucking shit. And it's only an hour and 49 minutes long. So it's perfect. It's under 2 hours. It's a 15, man. How long has it been since we've had something above rated R? Fuck me. This has got so much potential, man. So much potential. Who's the director? I'm just going to go off in an absolute tangent fest here and see. Don't know much of her films, to be fair. There is so much potential in this film. I really hope it's successful. Is our Rotten Tomatoes stuff happening with this? Have we got anything on this film at all? It's so close to release. Nothing. I'm buzzing for this, man. And he's absolutely right. Absolutely fucking right, man. There is huge potential for a franchise.